You're listening to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast, a place for sex addicts to share their experiences of recovery, to help break the stigma, myths, and misconceptions of sex addiction. This podcast may contain topics of sexuality, sexual trauma, dysfunction, or other things that may be triggering, so listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. My name is Jason, I'm a sex addict, and I will be your podcast host for today. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to episode 173 of the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. This will be a short episode. I'm currently editing a conversation that I had in September, but it's a very long interview and is taking a lot longer to edit. I had a few announcements that I wanted to make this week, as well as talking about the updates to the ISO's website and the meeting search page. But the announcements that I want to make were pertinent to this weekend. On last week's episode, I did talk about the Giving Thanks event that is coming up here in the Bay Area this weekend. Also this weekend is the SAA and COSA speaker meeting. So moving in reverse, I wanted to share information about that. On our announcements page on the BayAreaSAA.org website, we do have the information for both of these events, and I will be putting the links for these in the show notes of this episode. So the Bay Area Quarterly SAA and COSA Speakers Meeting brings together SAA and COSA speakers for an evening of fellowship on the first Sunday in February, May, August, and November. This meeting is for both fellowships and is open to partners as well. And so this will be on Sunday, November 2nd at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. And there's a reminder that this is the first day of Pacific Standard Time. So the clocks are changing this weekend. But we do have a speaker from San Francisco and from Berkeley, and looking forward to that. And I may be sharing those recordings on future episodes of the podcast. So if you are interested, all of the Zoom information is there up on the Bay Area website, and we'd be happy to have you. So the other major event that is going on this weekend is the 23rd Annual Giving Thanks. And I'm going to be reading a little bit more about that from the ISO's website. But again, this is an afternoon of fellowship for people here in the Bay Area, and it is also a fundraiser. I wanted to read a little bit of our flyer. Enjoy food, beverages, and fellowship. Partners are welcome. Lunch is provided, but feel free to bring a dish to share. This will be Saturday, November 1st from noon to 3 p.m., and this is at the Creekside Community Church in San Leandro for anyone here in the Bay Area that wants to attend. So in addition to being an afternoon of fellowship, this is also a way for us to raise funds to support the International Service Organization and give thanks to our fellowship. We do have a speaker who will be talking about his experience in SAA. Last year I was the speaker, but this year I will be the MC for the event, and looking forward to that. So up on our website, we do have the flyer that you can print out and bring to meetings. It also has information on how to make donations. There's also a QR code that will bring you to the donations page directly, or you can text BAGT to 91999, and that will also take you to the donations page. We do have several links on the Bay Area SAA website announcement page, including the donation link and the thermometer. It shows how much we've raised for the weekend. So we have started taking in donations already. We usually keep the link open for another week or so. And I know that I have read this before on the podcast. Like I mentioned, last year I was the speaker for the event, and I recorded that for episode 145. But I know on episode 144, I also talked about giving thanks. This is something that we do here in the Bay Area every November. And I know that I did read information from the website on one of those episodes. But on saa-recovery.org, there is a page called A Simple How-To for Giving Thanks. I did get an email from someone in Canada who wanted information about this. And once I found the information, I couldn't find the email again. I think that one came in through the Bay Area website rather than the podcast. So again, I will be linking this to that person's email once I find it. So here is a simple how-to for giving thanks. In 2003, an SAA member from San Francisco wanted to find a special way to show his gratitude for the work that was being done by the ISO in service to the fellowship and to the sex addict who still suffers. He invited other SAA members from the Bay Area into his home on a Saturday afternoon in November for the specific purpose of giving thanks to the ISO. Appropriately, the event became known as Giving Thanks 1. The Bay Area Giving Thanks has raised over $240,000 since 2003 in support of the ISO and its outreach programs. Other local SAA fellowships began to follow the Bay Area's example. The Houston Giving Thanks has raised over $186,000 since 2008, and the Phoenix Giving Thanks has raised over $6,000 since 2012. Hopefully, more local SAA fellowships will follow suit. Now that the Bay Area's example has been duplicated, no longer can it be considered a fluke or an aberration, especially when the event can be organized so easily. Here is the simple formula in Who Could Have Guessed? 12 Steps. And I know for a fact that I've read all these on a previous episode. I'm not going to read them here on this one. But the basic gist is getting a subcommittee together to organize, find a date and a location, get someone to organize the food for the event, contact the ISO office for tax purposes and links, and get together a committee that helps spread out the information. If you are interested in doing this for your fellowship, there is the information here on saa-recovery.org, and it is under the contribute page /giving-thanks. And I'll have a link for that in the show notes as well. In addition to that, when we first established a committee, we created a digital binder of all the information that we've done over the years to help pass that along to future committees. So I do have these on a Google Drive. Most of the information was from 2018 and 2019. In that binder was a document called How to Put on a Giving Thanks, and we do have various positions such as the committee chair, the fellowship marketing. That's something that I've usually been doing in terms of getting the word out, and that's what I'm doing here on this episode. Event hosts, logistics, food and beverages, a treasurer, action items, getting the committee together, finding a date, finding a location, someone who will put together the invitation or flyers and distribution, someone in charge of procuring the food and beverages, ride sharing information. So the Bay Area includes the San Francisco area, the Oakland, Berkeley area, the South Bay and Peninsula area, as well as those in the North Bay. Those in the North Bay intergroup has actually put together their own Giving Thanks type of event, and they usually do that in September. But if you are interested, I do have this information that I can share. I also did want to talk about the International Service Organization, the ISO, and why we do this fundraiser. So the ISO serves member groups by helping carrying the SAA message of recovery to the sex addict who still suffers. The ISO does conduct the business of SAA, assures compliance with all laws and regulations governing nonprofits, registers and protects the SAA trademarks and copyrights, accounts for resources, including money, assets, and human resources, and maintains the ISO office. The office also publishes and distributes the SAA literature, publishes the bi-monthly newsletter, The Outer Circle, maintains the telephone service for the benefit of the fellowship, maintains a database of all member groups that have registered with the ISO, and this is what I'll be talking about in just a few minutes, maintains secure websites for the purpose of outreach to the general public and service to members of the fellowship, maintains the SAA store, which sells literature and recording talks and workshops from international conventions, provides referrals to meetings for persons seeking recovery, provides information to members of the fellowship about meetings and ISO resources, provides information to the media about SAA and our program of recovery. The ISO also coordinates fellowship-wide activities like the convention and the conference, and provides a focal point for essential communications and supplies printed materials in support of the SAA Prisoner Outreach Program. So lots of different things that the ISO does. In keeping with the 12 traditions of SAA, the ISO provides a means of achieving unity of purpose and practice for the fellowship-wide activities desired by the diverse autonomous SAA groups throughout the world. And in order to do that, they do need financial support, which is most often provided by groups sharing their 7th tradition donations, individual contributors to the ISO through the Lifeline Partnership Program, and other events like Giving Thanks. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this episode was something that I learned at this year's conference, and that is the reorganization of the websites. So currently there is saa-recovery.org, saa-connect.org, the ISO store, the ISO service site, the convention website, the conference website, and there might be a few others that I am forgetting, but they plan to bring all of these under the umbrella of one website. The major thing that they've been doing this year, the phase 1, has been the reorganization of the meeting search page. And they've been sending out information to all groups to make sure that their meeting information is correct and up to date, so that they were able to put together this new database. And if you do find anything that is incorrect, you can send any corrections to the ISO office at support@saa-recovery.org. And before I give a walkthrough of the new website, I did want to read something that came from the ISO news sheet from August of 2025. And it says, "A new meeting search is peeking over the horizon. We've been working hard this year to get a new meeting search. It is scheduled to be released in the first week of September. The current search was implemented with the 2018 website redesign. Following changes made to account for COVID-19 closures, errors have crept in and prevented the search from working properly. The most glaring problem is that the search malfunctions when using a phone, so special instructions are present for mobile users. There have also been repeated requests for improved filters and better search capabilities for meetings. Our new meeting search addresses these concerns. We have completed user testing, and the developer is now implementing our feedback. When our current search went online, many people missed the old static format despite its severe limitations. There will undoubtedly be changes that frustrate many users, excite others, and leave some wishing for the old search. We've tried to keep the best features, but there may be something that you love that is not carried over. Whatever your opinion is, we welcome your feedback. Please await the email announcing the new search. Ultimately, we want to make it easier for both the newcomer and the seasoned member to find meetings. Thank you for your support." And so the rest of this episode, I did want to address a couple of the complaints that I received through emails and through people at my meetings trying to find meeting information. So I'm going to be walking through an email response that I wrote. I know this can be a bit overwhelming at first. The new website has filters to narrow down searches for meetings. You can choose one or several of the filters. The Bay Area SAA website has similar filters. And here's a link to the Bay Area online meetings throughout the week. And I had provided a link to our meetings page with the filter for online meetings. And before getting to the ISO website, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Bay Area website, and then I'll move over to the meeting page on the ISO's website. So when clicking on the meetings page, it does list out all of our meetings, starting with the next meeting that is available, and that it continues through all of our meetings throughout the week. So depending on what time of day you log into the website, the meeting order will be a little bit different. But you can search for a location or near me, where you can type in a location. Our next filter is called Anywhere. If you click on that, it will list all of the meetings in the East Bay, and you can further click down and find all the cities where there are meetings in the East Bay, all the meetings in the North Bay and San Francisco, and then the South Bay. So the East Bay, we've got 23 meetings. North Bay, we've got 25. And the North Bay does include Sacramento and places further out in North Central California, like Chico and Davis. San Francisco meetings, we've got 30, and then the South Bay, which is where I am, we've got 23. So you can use filters for any of the bigger locations or by city. Our next filter is called Any Day. And if you have any day, that will include everything. And then from there, you can click on each individual day. We do have a time filter, morning, midday, evening, and night. The next is any type of meeting, in person or online, closed, LGBTQ, location temporarily closed, and that is as a result of COVID, some of the meetings that were in person that are now online. Men's only meetings, open meetings, and step meetings. So one of the things between closed and open, I will talk about that when getting to the ISO website. I like their terminology much better. We've had lots of emails and confusion about what open and closed meetings are. For anyone that doesn't know, the closed meeting is for addicts only, or people that think they might have a problem. Open meetings will include anyone that wants to attend, so family members, nursing students, therapists, friends, or people that just want to know a little bit more about our program. So we have also a spot to jump between the list or a map of all of our meetings where you can click on the individual areas. Those are some of the filters that we have. So in the case of this emailer, he was looking for Zoom meetings. So I chose the online filter. And we have 57 meetings that are online here in the Bay Area and 54 that are in person. We launched this a few years ago. So as part of the Bay Area Intergroup, our visioning meeting, we had several suggestions for updating our website, and we did a complete revamp and relaunch of our website. Several other areas are currently doing that. I know that the Orange County Intergroup of SAA just launched their new version of their website, and that's OCISAA.org. The North Bay is currently talking about revamping their website, and that is northbaysaa.org. And they're looking for help in redesigning their website. And I know that several other intergroups around the country, around the world, have been updating their websites as well. A couple of them have reached out to me for the podcast player information to add to their website, and I do have the code for that for any intergroups that are wanting to put that up on their websites. We have one on the Bay Area website. The Noon Zoom Room, I know, has it. The Pittsburgh Intergroup has it. The UK used to have it, but they ended up taking that down. But if anyone is interested in the coding for their website, you can always reach me at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. And that podcast player does have every episode of the podcast, and it usually displays the latest episode at the top. Anyway, back to the meeting finder. Anyone here in the Bay Area should be used to filters, but there is still the confusion when going to the ISO's website. And clicking on Find a Meeting, it now has a very different looking page. It takes you to saa-meetings.org. On the YouTube version, I'm going to try to throw in some screenshots from this. But there is a map of where I'm currently located on the right side of the screen. On the top of the screen, there's a search keyword, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. City, state, or postal code you can search by. How far away a meeting is from you, 5 miles, 10 miles, 25, 50, or 100 miles. The next filter is occurs. Today I'm recording on a Tuesday, so it says occurs Tuesday. You can choose to select all days, all 7, or if you just want to do like Tuesday and Thursday, you can unclick Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, etc. So there are lots of different ways to search for meetings there. The next one is meeting type, and here we have in-person, hybrid, which is a combination of Zoom and in-person. Geographic based. There are not many geographic based meetings, but there are a few. My home meeting is in Los Altos, California, and when we went from the COVID restrictions back into the church, instead of doing a hybrid meeting, we decided to split into 2 separate meetings. One of them is in person and the other is just on Zoom, but it is still a Los Altos meeting. And so that one is geographic based. So when registering with the ISO, we chose geographic based. And I know that there are a few other meetings that have chosen to do so. So that way, even though anyone around the world can get to it, it still has the identity of a local meeting. And when we talk about areas, they do report to the local geographic area rather than the online areas. So in-person, hybrid, geographic-based. Online is just the generic, and then telemeetings. So those would be things other than Zoom, mostly phone in. The next is access type, and this is where I was talking about closed and open, which the ISO has been using for decades, as well as many other local intergroups. But I'm assuming that they've gone through a lot of the same problems, people trying to figure out what closed means. Can I still get in? So anyway, the new access type terminology is open to visitors and those seeking help. Open to visitors would be an open meeting. Those seeking help would be a closed meeting. The next filter is gender, men, mixed, women's, or women plus LGBTQ. And this is something that I would really love to send feedback for, was the non-binary. There's no filter for non-binary. My noon meeting that I go to is a men's and non-binary meeting. And we chose to put that in the title of our meeting because the ISO does not have a filter for non-binary. So I will be sending them feedback on that. And I'll get to how to send in feedback in just a few minutes. The next area is focus. So BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, and Persons of Color. Boundary, helping professionals. So those are meetings for therapists who are in SAA and such. Boundary level 2 and level 3. These are people that are going through the legal system. ISA, intimacy and sexual avoidance. LGBT, and that is for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. MAPS, which is minor attracted persons. Porn, which is obvious. And then teen. As far as I know, I think there's only one teen meeting that is specifically set up for people between the ages of 13 and 17. The next filter is language, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but there are quite a few different types of languages that the meetings are in. And the last is topic. And when registering a meeting, this is one of those checkboxes: book study, business meeting, check-in, feedback, meditation, newcomer, rotates, sharing, speaker, step, tradition, topic, and varies. So there's lots of different options there. So when doing a meeting search, you can click on one or more of these different filters and then hit apply. There is an apply and reset. Currently, I have it selected for teen, and it does show the only meeting that is set up. And I do have all 7 days of the week clicked. So if I wanted to do a new search, I would hit the reset button, and then that brings me back to a blank page. So when searching for an online meeting, as in the case of the email, the first thing to do is going to the meeting type, clicking online, which will include hybrid and geographic based, and all other Zoom meetings are listed generically as online. You can select the day of the week or all days of the week if necessary. I'm going back to my email. You can then click apply, and it will list all of the online meetings available. It will show the time where the meeting is based and the local, in our case, Pacific time. So for instance, there's a meeting that starts at 9:30 Central. It will show the meeting time as 9:30 Central and local time as 7:30 a.m. Pacific. So depending on where you are, I have it set up for the Pacific. Back to the email. If all days are selected, there should be about 480 plus meetings listed. At the bottom of the page, you can move to the next set of meetings in the list. I think it lists like 20 at a time. It will list the meetings chronologically starting on Sunday. All of the hybrid meetings are listed first, then the geographic-based meetings, and then the rest of the online meetings. It does put those in various sections, rather than all of them mixed in chronological order. So it'll do chronological hybrid, chronological geographic based, and then chronological online. And here is where I wanted to talk about the search keyword in the email I wrote, if you know a specific meeting name, you can type it into the search. And I used Bayou Blues as an example. You can just type in the word Bayou and then hit apply. And again, I did all 7 days. And the Bayou Blues meeting shows up. It's a Saturday meeting, and this is the one that I was talking about that starts at 9:30 a.m. Central. So any meeting name that you do know, you can just type that in and it'll bring you right to that meeting. When I looked up the Noon Zoom room, it's not called that on the ISO website. So there is the Noon Zoom (CT Houston), and that is at 10 a.m. Pacific, as it is a 12 p.m. Central meeting. And the meeting that I was talking about is titled by the day of the week. So in this case, I'm searching out Monday Zoom room and then dash men and non-binary because we don't have the option for non-binary in the filters. So if you want to type in non-binary, it will show all of the Noon Zoom room information, non-binary as one word. And then there's also another non-binary meeting that is separate. So anyway, when I do the YouTube edit, I'm hoping that I can put in screenshots of the various things that I was talking about. I had originally planned on doing an actual screen recording as I'm walking through this, but that just got a little bit more complex than I wanted to handle. So the ISO does have a web page titled Website Feedback, and here there's a form to fill out with your name, email, subject, and message, and then send. That will go back to them, and I'm going to be providing feedback that I would like to see a non-binary section added to the filters for gender. But yeah, a lot of people did have some confusion about finding meetings and like the old website, and this is a place to provide that feedback. In addition to this and the giving thanks and registering a meeting and other things like that, I will be providing a lot of links in the show notes of this episode. So thinking of feedback, I'm going to close out this episode and give you our contact information for the podcast. If you did have feedback about any of the podcast episodes, I'm not sharing music on this episode, but if you had any music that's important to your recovery, you can always send that information to us at feedback@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. Or if you wanted to get a hold of me personally, questions about the podcast, questions about the program, or scheduling to be a guest. And yes, I still got to go through a lot of those. You can reach me at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I'm currently editing the recording for the next episode of the podcast. And beyond that, I'm going to need to start scheduling more recordings, as well as sharing the recordings from this weekend's SAA and COSA speaker meeting and possibly getting a recording of the Giving Thanks talk. So with the theme of giving thanks, I'm so thankful for everyone tuning into the podcast in this episode. And as always, keep coming back. The views and opinions contained in the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Bay Area Intergroup or the ISO of SAA.